All right, Hot Breathiverse. Welcome back to the Hot Breath Podcast. I am your host, comedian Joel Byers. This is the show where you learn comedy from the pros, and specifically our series, Comedians on Skype Talking Comedy. Every week, we're in our Facebook group asking your favorite comedians your favorite comedy questions. So if you're not a member yet, go into the description of this show, click join the Facebook group, and you can start connecting with comics like today's guest, as well as listeners and fans from around the world. So with all that being said, our guest is the one, the only. Round of applause for Francisco Ramos, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for Francisco.
Thank you. I'm going to applaud myself.
Yeah.
So I can feel good about it.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I can hear something.
There's a applause sound effect going off on our end. So thank you for doing this, by the way.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me, man. How are you? How's your quarantine treating you?
We're staying busy instead of worried.
That's good.
All the shows have been canceled. It's like at this point, I've just been really building this podcast. We are doing like 3 of these Q&As a week and just really focusing on what I can control, which is building the podcast and the community.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's the best thing I think anybody can. I mean, that's the same thing that I'm doing. I'm focusing on doing the other stuff that I can control, like you said, like writing. I've been writing scripts and working on sketches and podcasts and all this stuff. So it's kind of like that's what you can't just not do anything. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, can't just roll over. I mean, this is an opportunity to really focus on things that we were finding excuses not to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
That's it, exactly. That's even I'm finally doing like a diet thing, and I'm like going like if I can't do it now, there's no way I can. I mean, there's no excuse not to do it now because like you can't go to eat, like you can't control your food. It's kind of like this is the perfect time if anybody wants to do a diet or whatever they want to do or not eat something. It's right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what specifically are you changing in your diet? What are you doing?
Oh, I'm. It's just I got a friend who sent me this diet. It's basically pretty much. It's just. I mean, you eat pretty much throughout the day, but it's just like protein and vegetables and like you just cut dairy or anything like that. So like just any dairy or any obviously fat or anything like that. But it's pretty much that, and you don't have to work out too much. You just got to do whatever you want to do, and it actually works. I mean, like I've been doing it for like a week and a half, and I already lost like 5 pounds just pretty much doing that. But it's like, but you could feel it because like I do give myself one day, like I gave myself Sunday to do like the cheat day. And like, I was like, but Sunday I was like, I want carbs. I was like, I got a pizza. I was like, just carbs. Just give me anything that's just fluff. Just give me, because it's funny because the body's like, I need, But then it was a good day to like stuff myself with that and then go back to the other stuff. But it works. I mean, it's pretty easy. Diet, I mean, people like any diets are like religions, man. It's like they all do the same thing. Is whatever you want, it's like however you want to feed, whatever connects with you. But at the end of the day, it's like you can't. It's not and move. That's pretty much.
Yeah, we all want like some sort of like life hack or shortcut, but it really is like, I mean, we all know what we should eat, but it's like we want someone that looks cool to tell us a cooler way to just eat what we instinctually know is good versus bad. But I could tell a difference
pretty much it.
When you're like healthy and you're eating healthier, just like your overall productivity, your mindset, like optimism and focus and clarity.
It changes everything.
It really does. It really does.
Because I think it's like once you do one thing, that then you're like, oh, I can do this, so that means I can do this. Once you complete one task, it could be a diet or it could be I organize my room or whatever it is. It's like you finally go like, oh, if I did this, then I guess like it gives you that adrenaline to do other stuff.
Yeah, I have found this has helped, and quarantine has really helped me generate like daily habits like early in the day. Like I wake up and I've been meditating every day, and then I do exercise, which started out as like a 10-minute like little thing that's now growing to like 20, 25, but it all just super incremental. And then I walk my dog. Like I've started to create rituals within the morning of small victories that really snowball into like momentum into the rest of the day. So it's been super.
Yeah, I've been doing the same thing completely. Like, I mean, I'm like if I consider myself right now like if I'm I'm a white collar crime, or like I committed, like I'm a corrupt politician that's on house arrest, and this is my prison. So like, in order to keep sane in prison, you have to do that. You have to have a routine, because if not, you go nuts. So like, yeah, I do the same thing. I meditate, I walk the dog, I do this stuff. I don't watch TV until the end of the day, pretty much. Like I try to keep myself kind of like just do everything that I need to do, and then at the end, then I'll watch TV at night, whatever. But like, you need to have that in order. I think that's why there's so many people that are like that get nuts, because they don't have that. They don't create a routine. So it's like, obviously you're gonna go nuts if you got nothing to fill your time with.
Yeah, that's something I've really been opening these shows with, is like talking to other comics about like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? It's like, what do we do right now? And a big thing has been like what you're talking about. Oh, I'm writing scripts. I'm working on sketches, a podcast. One of my favorites was Jeremiah Watkins was saying how this is a great time to learn a new skill. So if you've wanted to learn how to edit your own videos, learn. You have the time. If you want to learn Photoshop, learn. Like, now is the time to start learning these new skills that when the stage comes back, you're going to just become that much more powerful.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I mean, that's why I see so many people like getting mad about like, I can't do this, and I can't go to the bar, and I can't go to the... I'm like, you can do that all the time. It's like, why don't you use this opportunity to get, like you said, enrich yourself as a person? Stuff that, like, whatever you want to do. If it doesn't have to be even comedy. It could be like, I want to learn how to build something, or how to whatever, write or read more, whatever. But it's like, it's an opportunity to really use this to make yourself a better person. It's like, might as well use it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, Dusty Slay was saying he's been making birdhouses. So it's like, it's use the time to do things you've been wanting to do. And what I admire about your career and what you do is like, it seems like, how long have you been doing stand-up?
About 12 years now.
12 years. So it's seemingly, I've been doing it at 10, and from what I understand, it's being just good at stand-up isn't enough anymore, and you're really a comic that is multifaceted, and I'm excited about the timing of this interview first off, because I have a feeling you're going to be going from, oh, you're the guy from that thing, to, oh, you're that thing type deal. You know what I mean? Like, so it's cool to catch you at this point to then the trajectory you're headed on. But you've been able to bridge the gap.
But thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course, yeah. And you've been able to really bridge the gap between like stand-up and acting. And that's something I really wanted to get in with you, because like, as stand-ups, a lot of us do want to get into acting and maybe have no idea how, or maybe we're terrible. So, like, what was that process? Because you're successful at both. So it's like, how, Francisco, how?
How, the magic how of industry talk is like, how do I do this? Like, well, it's funny because it's like, I always tell people, like, I'm gonna tell you how I did it, or what happened to me. So, but I always tell people, this is what happened to me. That doesn't mean this is the best thing for you, or it's gonna be like your way. Your way is probably gonna go faster. Some other people are gonna take a longer time. It doesn't matter. But in terms of acting, I mean, I love acting. I always wanted to act. I started doing stand-up. I started doing improv, and one of the reasons I love doing improv is because you get to act. You get to do different characters. You get to do different things. So like, that's and then I started doing stand-up, but I always love acting. And acting, it was always a thing that for me, it was hard in the beginning a lot, because as a stand-up, we are the whole, like a simple example is this. As a stand-up, we are the whole production. We are the camera, we're the actor, we're the producer, we're the director, we're the sound, we're the DP, we're everything. So it's like when we go on stage, we have to do everything. So like we're used to doing everything. So when we go, so one thing I learned with acting, you have to realize you're one of 100 in the call sheet or whatever it is. So it's like so the main thing is like you have to tone it down and go down. Especially for me, it took me a while because when I started, especially, I was very energy and like, go this and hey, I'm gonna make you laugh and funny and physical. And when you do that in acting, it just looks like, whoa, like too much. Like ground yourself, be a normal person, stuff like that. So I think that's the main thing I think that I tell with stand-ups, because again, we have to realize, I mean, and some people it comes easy because some people are just more chill on stage and they just do that. And it's kind of like an easy transition. Mm-hmm. But you have to, another advice that D'Elia told me, I think Chris D'Elia, once is like, because I told him, oh man, you're a good actor. I remember he's like, oh yeah, it's like, because you have to, it's like I can't do the same thing that I do on stage, on stand-up when I act. It looks crazy. And that really helped me to realize, that's true. You can't be the same kind of like same personality on stage. I mean, for a type of role,
Mm-hmm. Has a lot of your acting opportunity come from people seeing you on stage, or are you like out at auditions more, seeking them that way?
It's well, it's funny. It's like most of some I got in through auditions, but and it's not I got in like a lot, but I think like 2/3 of what I got have gone through either people see me doing stand-up or recommendations because people know me as a stand-up. So that's another thing that I tell people is like, when you perform, you never know who's on stage. So it doesn't matter if it's 3 people, that person could be somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. So it's like, even for like this Hentify show that I'm in on Netflix right now, one of the creators saw me in a show that I did, and he remembered me because of that. So that's, again, I had no idea he was there, and I just did my, so it's like, you never know. That's why it's always good to never, doesn't matter what kind of show you're doing, always do a good job, because you never know who's going to go be on stage.
Boom. And how, like, for a comic curious about getting into acting, like, what do you have any advice of how we can start getting the momentum in that direction?
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing that I say, acting, I think it's a skill that you do need to learn, and you do need to take classes. Stand up, I'm 50-50 on the taking classes thing. I think I never took a class. I just read a book. I just read the Judy Carter book, and that's how kind of, that book, Comedy Bible thing.
Yeah, very popular.
Basically that taught me how to, how to create how to write a joke. But to me, with stand up, the main thing that you need to do is get up and be comfortable on stage by as yourself. To me, you don't need a class for that. I mean, I think, but some comics have taken a class. If you take a class, it should be like one class that you take that just teaches you a little thing, and then that's it. Don't take any more classes, because nobody can teach you to be funny.
Yeah, it's all the classes are good for the learning curve. You can learn the techniques faster than just banging your head against the wall on stage, but you have to get on stage. Period.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But with acting, you do need classes, and you do need to take a lot of classes and always be on classes, because acting is a very skill that obviously you need other people. You need to do, you rehearse a lot. So I think my recommendation taking classes is like, there's several types of acting techniques. There's Meisner, there's Strasberg, there's that you can always go online and see. I mean, I would suggest take one intro class of each of those classes, just to see which one do you like, which one works for you the best. Because I've taken several ones, and finally I'm in one that's the one that I'm right now. That's those Meisner, and I feel that's the one that fits what I understand it better. You know what I mean? It's easier for me to and everybody has a different way of thinking. So it's like, it's whatever. To me, it's like, take a class that helps you learn, understand quickly, especially with auditioning. Understand quickly what the scene is, what you're supposed to be doing in the story, and right away, and also teaches you to be yourself within that story. You know what I mean? Like not so you're not like a crazy, but you're like, oh, I have to be this kind of person within. And I always say the story because what people don't realize is like you have to understand what's your role in the story. Because if you don't, you might do something. You might be the big guy, and it's like, no, you're supposed to be the, hey, what's up, guys? Like the chill guy, you know. And then you might get that audition, you might get that part because you went in and like did that instead of doing the other part.
Understand what's your role in the story. That's gold.
Yes. Sorry.
So when it also comes to like finding the balance between stand-up and acting, because like you said, it is a skill that each require their own specific time and repetition, and like how are you able to balance those two? And also, like I was saying, it's not just enough to be funny anymore. I don't know if it's enough to be an actor anymore in terms of, do you need to have your own like pilot or some spec script, so if you do get an acting job, you meet the writer of that show and they're like, hey, I really like you, and you're like, hey, we'll actually have this, like more tangibles you need beyond just like maybe the skill set, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're right. I think we're in a time now that you can't just be one thing. I mean, but what I also say is like, it's better to be very, very good in one thing than be okay in 3 or 4 things. So it's like, if you're not that good at, or if you don't like acting, don't be an actor. You know what I mean? Don't act. I mean, I was like, just become a better writer, become a better, there's different ways that you can always be to stand up. If you want to just be stand up and that's your thing, great. But you have to also be realistic about who you are and what your skills are, and also what the industry tells you to. Because I think if you're good at something, the industry will basically tell you indirectly, like, hey, you're good at, because for example, if you're a good actor, you will get booked a lot. Even if you don't know any acting or anything like that, because naturally you're a good actor. And that's what the industry is telling you, hey, you're a good actor, keep working on this. If you've been taking all the classes and you don't get booked, then you start going like, well, maybe I'm a better writer, or I'm a better producer. But what I tell people is like, I always put Judd Apatow as an example, as a guy that I believe that he realized early on. He's like, oh, I'm a good stand-up, but I'm not a great stand-up like Robin Williams or all these guys. So I'm gonna focus on writing and producing. And what he does, he becomes big on producing and writing movies, huge on shows. And now, what does he do? Now he can do stand-up. Now he can do a Netflix special.
Exactly.
So it's like, you can always go back. You know what I mean? It's like, so use your skills that you have to get to where you want to go. But also, I do think it's a catch-22 thing. You do have to do. I don't think you can just do one thing. You have to do other things, but do the stuff that you really like. You know what I mean? Don't do. If you're gonna sing, if you like to sing, but because you want to. Don't try to sing because, oh, this is gonna get me the part. Because that's the wrong way about doing it. But the more skills you have, the better. But I think you have to be genuine skills or stuff that you want to do for real.
Yeah, it sounds like self-awareness is huge, and just being honest with yourself. Huge. So yeah, help us find how were you able to become more self-aware in your strengths versus your weaknesses, and what's worth pursuing and what's just not for you.
Yeah, man, I think, well, that's when I first started doing stand-up, and I started going to the open mics in LA, and I would go, and the Comedy Store and the Improv were the big ones where you get a lot of people to come by. And just that early on, without not knowing anything, I would see like, man, it's like half of these people are crazy and half of these people are gonna have know what they're doing. And it was like that. It's literally like that. You could see, because I think about it with the people who I started with and now what they're doing. The ones that I thought was like, oh, they're good, they know what they're doing. And they're doing it. They're still on it. They're still working. Gerard Carmichael is one of them. I started with him together doing open mics, and
wow.
And I could tell right away. It's like, oh, he's got something. You know what I mean? He knows what he's doing. And then there's other people that were like, wow, this person are just completely not self-aware of who they are, or they're just or they have. And that's the thing. You have to be. When I moved to LA, I even told myself, it's like, I studied finance and international business, and when I moved to LA, I got a job right away at an investment firm, because I told myself, it's like, look, I'm gonna start doing this stand-up thing, but if I'm not good at, I have this job. I mean, I was more low self-confidence than high confidence. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna be good at, but hey, let me try it. And then slowly, like I said, people would tell you, hey, you're good. You get booked here, and you start going this, and you start going this, and you can start feeling that but you have to have that self-awareness of like, I mean, a perfect example is like, I use sports as a thing. It's like, I love sports. I love basketball. When I see LeBron play, I never in my whole life go, it doesn't matter how much I train. There's no way I can play against, like, in the NBA level, not even LeBron, just NBA level. So it's like that. Like, but if you see other people, like, you go on stage and you see other people and go like, man, no, to be realistic, I think I'm like those guys or those girls. And that's where you have to be realistic yourself. It's like, okay, yeah, no, I'm not crazy. I know I'm as funny as those person if I put in the work.
Yeah, that's something Nate Bargatze said on here, was just, it's important to see successful people become successful. So you see that it is tangible and possible.
Yeah. Yes, and another thing too, yeah, Nate is awesome guy. And I worked at the Comedy Store, and I saw that what he said, because working at the door at the Comedy Store, I would see the people that were successful back then and now that are huge, and I could see their work ethic, and I could see how, just even like, for example, like two people that are huge right now are Whitney Cummings and Sebastian Maniscalco. And when I worked the door, they would just and they still do it in some sort of way, but they would just come in 10 minutes before their spot. Sebastian, I would say hi, say, hey, what's up? How are you? What's going on? Like very shy. All right, okay, cool. It's like I'm doing like a mafia deal. I'm like, am I getting killed? Am I getting whacked right now? What's going on? But then he will go up, and after he done his set, that's it. He will leave. Same thing with Whitney. Leave. Why? Oh, what's Whitney doing? Oh, she was working on Two Broke Girls. You know what I mean? Like, what's about, so it's like, and I could see, Al Madrigal, Mas Jobrani, and stuff like people that are like that you could see. I'm like, oh, this is kind of like you said, successful people that became even bigger. Is because they did it, treated it as a work ethic. They're realistic. They're like, I do my stuff. I got to go do other stuff. I got to work on I got to do another set, whatever it is.
I didn't realize you worked the door at the Comedy Store. You're part of like a unique group there. A lot of people started there.
I mean, from the beginning, even though that was the thing with the Comedy Store. Mitzi, if you worked there, it's because you were funny. And like, she could literally, what I heard, she could literally fire you if you weren't funny. Like, you would go out in front of her, and if you bombed, like during an open mic, she'd be like, you're fired. It's like, what? It's like, I mean, I didn't go through that, but I did. But it was tough to start in there, because it was like a fraternity. You know what I mean? And like, I went to college and I was never in a fraternity, but my fraternity was the Comedy Store, because as soon as you got into it was crazy. Like, before you were an open mic, like, nobody would like pay attention to you or whatever. As soon as I put that shirt on, then everybody's like, whoa, what's up? How you doing? And then regulars be like, hey, just give you like a, what's up? But then when I would do the potluck or the open mic, then the people who were above me or were already there that work at the Comedy Store, they would just make fun of you, just treat you like shit, like just fuck with you. And you had to, which taught me, like, I remember one time there was two guys, his name was Josh and O'Neill, I forget right now their names right now, or their last names, but they used to run the potluck or the open mic, and they would shit on everybody. Like, and this was back when I started, when like the Comedy Store wasn't that popular, so there was really nobody. But they would just go in, and if you suck at the comedy, you'd be like, wow. It's like, why don't you just kill yourself? Shit like that,
Wow,
literally bad. Like, so then I remember I went, and then when you work there after the open mic, you have a chance to go up. It's called Friends and Family. So then I would go. I remember I went up once, and I think they made fun of me when they brought me up, and when I got the mic, I made fun of them back, right away. And then I did a good set, and after that, they're like, "Oh, well, that was good. Give it up for Francisco." And after that, they kind of like they realize, "Oh, this guy's good. This guy is not gonna he's not gonna take shit." And to me, that's in a way I liked it because it kind of shows you like, hey, how much you need to have that tough skin in comedy and stuff like that. You need to have that. You need to have you can't in the industry because how many times you get told no. So it's like, so it's a little way, it's like tough love because some people, but that, I mean, for me, it worked. For other people, doesn't work, and it doesn't mean that you have to go to the comedy store to be whatever. Look at Seinfeld, for example, never perform at the comedy store, and look who is. So
I have to ask because I've performed in the belly room there a couple times, but what was that experience like for you? You're the doorman, you've maybe been in the belly room and then maybe the original room, but then to get on that main room stage, like I've sat in there and watched like Chappelle just riff for 2 hours or just like see D'Elia just slay it. But that main room, there's like a magic in that room. What was that experience like for you the first time?
You mean the main room or the original room?
I was saying the main room, but maybe either if one was more memorable to
The big
you.
one.
Yeah, the big one. Yeah.
Because oh, okay. Because well, actually, the original room is the one that's the most scary one, or the one that's the toughest one, or the ones that's the most
because you're like in
has
there.
the magic on.
Okay,
Because that's the middle one. Because there's people. No, yeah, I mean when I first, it's different because when I first went as an open mic is a different situation. It's light, like nobody's there. But like my first doing it as a regular, that was cool because it was my first like spot. So like you go up there and I think I opened the show because that's what either you open the show or you go at the end pretty much. But it was cool. But what I liked about it is like one thing that I think is like about being ready and being realistic is like when I got told that I got passed, it wasn't a huge like wow. I was like okay, cool. Because at that point I felt that I was ready. Not that I was like a great like. But I felt like, I can do what I've been watching for 2 years, other comics do. I'm not gonna, So it was awesome but that room is what I love about that room, and other comics say the same thing. That room, if you can kill in that room or do great in that room, you can do any show wherever because that room definitely does teach you how to deal with everything, how to deal with drunk people, how to deal with a no crowd, with crowd spread out, with like something weird happened right before I went, like I had to, one time I think I had to go after Chappelle, I think, or something. How do you fucking follow that? Like, what are you going to do? Like, you can't just do your bits. Hey, everybody. It's like, you got to talk 5 minutes about Chappelle and what's going on and whatever. So it's the best thing to teach you how to deal with any situation in other. So it's like for me when I go on the road and and sometimes like if I headline and it's a good show and then the next night or the late show it's like it's not that many people, they're like I was like I'm good with this because I know how to change to like I can know how to do a packed crowd and know how to do with 30 people, and that's the skill that the original room gives you because it's like a boxing gym.
Oh yeah, I love I've made a few trips out to LA. I'll usually go annually at least once just to kind of stay out there, but the Comedy Store is always getting to perform there, but then also just to go from room to room and just watch watch who's on stage. It's like you go, there's Joe Rogan, you go in the original room and it's like Joey Diaz, and then upstairs in the belly room, maybe Judd Apatow did something. It's like it's incredible, dude. That's the one thing. I'm happy that I stayed in Atlanta, and I'm like my whole goal was to like create my own success, build it from my hometown to show other comics that it is possible, that you don't have to move to find success. So I'm grateful for that, but that is the one, I would say maybe the main advantage to moving to Newark or LA that I've seen my friends do. is that proximity,
Yeah.
is that environment that you are around the best in the business, so it only makes you better. So that is like, I would say, the one thing I'm like, that would have been cool, but I do understand the value of doing it this way. But just getting to be in that environment around them, I'm sure it just rubs off on you.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of the reasons that I moved. One of the reasons that I moved is because I wanted to be. I told myself, like, if I want to be one of the best, I have to be where the best are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like same thing with like if I want to be I want to develop an app, I gotta go to Silicon Valley. You know, if I'm in fashion, I gotta go to Paris or Milan. You know, like you can't. Like that was my thing. I was like, I have to go there to see. And also, when I started, I knew if I stayed in DC, because DC has a great comedy scene, but for me it was like I already had such a life there that like socially as well, I would promote parties and I would do this, and I was like I can't do both. I was like I gotta get out of here and become a new person in a way, and so nobody knows me, and that's one of the reasons I also moved to LA, because for me I was like, and because I started from scratch, I like I said, I took improv classes in DC, but that's it. Everything else that I really started comedy was in LA.
You just like
I
jumped
never started.
in. Oh, you were like, I want to be a great comedian. I'm just going to go do it.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. I wasn't. I
impressive.
from zero. Because but again, it doesn't. To me, is and that's why for me, when I tell people like, oh, do you think working at or when people ask me, do you think working at the Comedy Store works and stuff like that? It's like, to me, it worked for me because I didn't know anything. I was just starting from zero. So like it taught me how to be a comic and how to do all this stuff. But like comedy for 5 years in DC, I don't think working at the Comedy Store would have been the best thing, and that doesn't mean you can't get into the Comedy Store, but it's just, it wouldn't be appropriate. I don't know, for me,
I love it. All right. Yeah, let's get into fan questions here as well. But yeah, I love hearing that. Yeah, I love hearing that. Just that self-belief. I think Jeremiah Watkins did the same thing. He just moved, from Kansas City, right? And just went to LA. Like, I'm just going to do this. No. I love that.
Well, Jeremiah is one of those guys that I say is one of those guys that I remember since from the beginning. I worked with him in a couple of things, even, when he just started, because I saw that self-realization of like, you're a normal person. It's kind of like be a normal person that is self-aware of who they are and what the skills they have. It's not being arrogant, but it's being like, oh, okay, this person is normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Literally, like, don't go like, you can't just go to like New York or LA and think like, I'm going to be a star in a year. It's like, if you have that mindset, then you have no idea how this business is, Mm-hmm. So it's just having that self-awareness. Yeah. So
let's get into the first question here. From this is actually from Justin Douliard, and he actually this whole week has been dedicated to like listener requests, and he voted you, I remember, on our Instagram poll, and he actually he saw you in LA. He didn't say what club, but he's actually at work. I don't know where he works, but he's at work, so he can't tune in. But I made sure that I got a question from him, so he was able to ask, because he did.
Cool.
He was so jazzed you were going to be on here. And he asks, when someone says Oklahoma, what is the first thing that pops in your head? You saw me, apparently you did crowd work with him, and he said he was from Oklahoma, and then you did a bunch of funny riffs about Oklahoma.
Wow. I have. That's so funny, because it's like I don't even remember. That's so funny, because like when I do riff, because I do like to riff a lot. I like to do crowd work. But it's so in the moment that I have no idea what I said or anything like that. I've been to Oklahoma to do shows. I think some colleges shows and stuff like that. So it's cool. I don't know what I said or anything like that. It's just but I guess it's a great state.
That was very diplomatic.
It's a great musical.
Yeah. That is something that came up with Shane Torres on Tuesday, was like, he has some go-to lines that someone was asking, like, Are those in the moment or are those prepared lines? So he's probably wondering like, oh, does this guy just have a bunch of Oklahoma material? But it was all just like improvised in the
no.
moment, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, because that one, because I do like Shane. I do have some stuff that I use here and there for when I do crowd work. Just mostly things that I know are gonna lead me to one thing or the other. But yeah, I don't have Oklahoma material that I use that I have reserved for like crowd work or anything like that. So that was definitely of the moment. I have no idea what I said.
That's kudos to your skills though that it came off naturally. So that's bravo to that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let's get Angela Moore in here. Angela Moore, she's actually tuning in because she was interested in the acting comedy connection because that's what she's pursuing as well. And she asks,
Cool.
as a comedian and actor, do you try to go for comedic roles or dramatic roles as well?
I think both. Definitely. I think actually comedians are good dramatic actors because, because in a way we're serious. I mean, some are serious and some are, we have our crazy minds and whatever it is. So it's like we can use that a lot in those dramatic roles. And with dramatic roles, we don't have, the good thing about it is that you don't have to do too much, but because we comics are already expressive naturally, we are already doing a lot without doing too much. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, and I think, and that when you're starting, you got to do both. I mean, you can't, I don't think you can't just pick and choose. I mean, unless it's a role that you're literally like, look, I don't want to do this at all. But like, if you get into, because you never know. Again, I would say what path is you to where you want to be. You might become a huge dramatic actor, and then all of a sudden, I want to go back to stand-up, and then you can do your stand-up. But people are gonna come see you now because you're, Bruce. I was gonna say Michael Keaton, for example. He started doing stand-up, and then he became Batman and Beetlejuice, and so I mean, I don't think so. It's like you never know. So I think it's like go to any role that you can, and I think with acting, with dramatic actor, is one of the things. Is like I find it not easier, but it's just I think it's a way for you as a comic to just be more of yourself, and still is going to be more expressive because already we have that innate, persona.
Yeah, that innate darkness, I think, is what you're referring to.
Yeah. Yes. I wanted to be politically correct, but yeah, that innate fucked up thing that we have. Because I was a comics. We are weird people. I mean, we think we are the. I mean, I realized that when I became a comic, or now going back, is when I remember I think we were in a funeral or somebody died or something, and my first thought was a joke or something to make fun or to have a, it's like only us would think that way. Not to be mean, but it's kind of like, oh, this is funny.
Oh yeah, that's our default. Like that's just kind of our default setting. I've had my wife be like, "Hey," I've gotten too sarcastic, and she's like, "Hey, I'm a person. I'm not a comedian."
Yeah.
It's like, go easy.
Yeah.
Because we're numb.
I got in trouble a lot with my friends. Yeah, right now during this quarantine, I got in trouble with my normal friends. I call them normal friends, the ones that are in DC. Because I make fun a lot, and I'm used to talking to comics all the time, and so it's like it gets too much for them, and I'm like, and then they get mad, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were just like having fun,
Right.
It's like, but for me with a comic, there's no line,
Yeah.
we just, it's like, hey, you gotta take it,
I love it. It's my favorite. So let's see. We have from Canada coming in here. A question from Canada.
Cool. I love Canada.
Yeah, we have listeners. We're on every continent but Antarctica right now. But we're gunning for you, Antarctica.
That's where most of my fans are from.
Is Antarctica?
Yeah. I have a very niche fan base.
Hey, wait, you do you have fans in Venezuela or anything? Have you been able? Because you're from there,
well,
right?
It's funny because I'm from there. I
Yeah.
was born there, but I came very early to the U.S. I mean, I was 11, 12 years old. So it's
Okay.
like most people don't know me. I mean, Venezuelan comics that are well known me and stuff like that. But in terms of the public, most people don't know me because I never started doing, and I don't do jokes about. I mean, I talk about Venezuela because of where I'm from and stuff like that, but I don't do jokes specific about Venezuela or what's going on in Venezuela because I haven't lived there for basically all my life. So like,
Right.
a lot of people still don't know me that much from Venezuela. Yeah.
All right. So this is Justin Williams here, and he asks, "Hey Francisco, I'm also an actor comedian from Toronto, Canada. Have you ever booked a comedy gig, but then also booked an acting role the same day? What do you do?"
Well, it depends on that's where you gotta. I would see what's more important, in terms of like of your career and what you want. Hey, if you, I mean, most of the times if I book a TV role or a movie role, most of the times they're good roles, and I'm like, even if the part is a small part, I will do that role because that's gonna lead to other stuff, But if it's like if you're booking like a sketch from your friends or whatever that you can do, you don't have to do that day. You're like, hey, can we just do it? I would be like, hey, do the comedy gig. But another thing too. But if it's and also for example, like I remember if like Tom Segura asked me to open recently, and I had to cancel something else or something, but I was like, well, I'm gonna take that Tom Segura gig because it's Tom Segura, So it's like, so if it's like a small role gig, acting gig that is not as important as you think as opening for Bill Burr or somebody like that you respect, that you want to, so I think it's about gauging, which always try to find a way to try to do both. Maybe, hey, can I do this one the next day or whatever it is? But if you can't, then you got to make the decision in terms of like what's more important in your career at that point.
Yeah, I think it's important to also like weigh, like you said, the opportunities, and also I've been selective with things. Like an example I've used before is like I was offered to play like a slave owner for like this project on Kevin Hart's network, and I was just like what will this look like in 5 years? Is that how even if it did blow up, and do I now want to be known as that? I think it's important with people taking roles and opportunities is also look like, what is this going to look like in 5-10 years? Do I care about this project? There's questions to ask yourself beyond just like, oh, well, it says Kevin Hart above it, so I better do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's you hit it right. I mean, that's very smart advice. And just to add to that, it's like, exactly what you were saying. And I think it's one thing you can always say, you never know what's going to make you famous in this industry. So it's like you said, you could do that role, and then now like that thing blows up, and now you're the slave owner guy, and like, oh, I don't want to be the slave owner. I don't want people to know me as that. So it's like so it doesn't matter what role. It doesn't matter how big the role is, because it could be literally just doing a sketch for one of your friends, or putting something on Twitter, or putting something on Instagram. You have to realize that's the thing that might go viral. So do you want to be known as that? So everything that you do, like, always know, like, do I want? I also have turned down other roles because I wasn't comfortable with being that, like, no, if this show got famous, then I'm that guy, and or for me, it was one of the things, like, I didn't want to be put so much in a box right away in the beginning, because then you're like, oh, then everybody's like, oh, then you're just gonna get roles because of that. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, I don't mind doing roles like that, but maybe later on in my career, so then people already know me, and then when I do that role, it's more about like, oh, it's Francisco doing this role. It's not just this guy. Example to me is like the guys, the guys who did I forget, Brokeback Mountain. The two guys, like those guys, they did that role. Yeah. But when they did that role, they won. It's great, stuff like that, because they're already known as actors, stuff like that. you know. And like, so it's kind of like, so if you maybe start as a role and not get fame, maybe now you're just gonna get those kind of roles, and if you don't, not that that's bad or anything like that, but you don't want to be put in a box so early on in your career, because then you want to be able to do other roles as well. I mean, so I think it's knowing what to choose and what not to choose. Like you said, you never know if you want to be known as one person, and then, like you said, then you're gonna get booked all the time as a slave owner.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
unless you like that, then that's
No,
fine.
yeah.
But you have to know.
And that's Robin actually followed up with, have you ever regretted any project you've accepted?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think every comic has I mean, it's more about, I mean, it's just stuff that I did back early on, like just little, like bad little sketch things that are in YouTube, or like, that are well, like, why did I do that? I mean, it's just like that I see it now, and I'm like, it's one of those ones where you're like, oh, I wanted to just get experience and stuff like that, you know, but it just, it didn't do anything. You know what I mean? It's just like, I mean, there was a movie that I did from my friend, that is just, it basically was like what they did is like they took the idea of Taken and they stole it and they just did a remake of Taken, you know, and then I was one of the kids, and it was shot very bad. I mean, it was just like, it wasn't good at all. It was like, it didn't do anything. It didn't do anything. It's literally, to me, I have several things that I've done that hopefully that they're gonna be shown later on, and I can just make fun of. Like if I'm like, let's say I'm in the Tonight Show or Jimmy Kimmel, and they're like, "Hey, we have this thing from back in when you know."
Yeah.
And I love to, and then I would love to show that, you know. But you know, and then also I done another thing too. I remember doing like a stand-up show that was taped for a cable TV thing, and I also remember doing it. Because it wasn't produced well. It wasn't like there wasn't that many people in the crowd. It was supposed to be a taping thing, and it just didn't look good, you know. And I remember doing it, and I'm like, why did I sign to do this, you know? And I remember even somebody saw it on TV and says like, that wasn't that good, because obviously, again, it wasn't my fault. It was the production that wasn't. But then it shows that you know that you're not doing. So I'm very careful, especially with stand up and stuff like that, of what stuff you want to put out, because you never know. Like again, you can't trust sometimes. I mean, you have to know that the production company, whoever's doing the show, is gonna put you in a good position. You know. You don't want to be seen as, because you might have a great set live, and then you see it on TV or on YouTube or whatever, and you're like, wait, this is bad. This it sounds horrible. It doesn't sound good. What's going on here? You know. So you have to be aware of those things too.
All right. So thank you so much for doing this, by the way. And I have to,
of course.
We'll wrap it up with this, but what was it like opening up for Tom Segura?
Oh, it was great. It was funny. So I opened with him. He's actually now started to do stand up in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So I opened for him in doing Spanish, and it was great. I mean, it was so much fun. I mean, he's a great guy. He's like so down to earth, and like he's one of those guys that I never even knew he knew Spanish. Like he came to me at the Comedy Store. I was standing there, and he just came up to me and started speaking Spanish. And I was like, I thought he was joking, and I was like, that's funny, because he has this Peruvian accent too. So he sounds well. He doesn't sound like he knows, like he sounds like he knows Spanish. So I was like, that's cool. And then he kept talking, and I'm like, what's going on? Why do you? And then he told me, it's like, oh no, my mom is Peruvian, and I was like, oh wow. So that's how we met, and I have a show that I do with other two comics, Jesus Trejo and Fabricio Copano, that we do a Spanish comedy stand-up at the Improv, like a monthly thing. And he came and did his first stand-up set there with us, you know, and he was kind of nervous. He was like, because it is tough doing, even for me, even though I'm fully bilingual. I'm so used to doing stand-up in English. It's a different way to do it in Spanish, because it's kind of like starting from scratch, because the timing and the quickness that I have in English, I don't have in Spanish yet. And for him, it's the same thing. But he did it. But another thing too, when you're a really good comic, it doesn't matter. You can do it in Chinese, you can do it in Russian. You will be good because you're already a good comic, and that's what happened with Tom. He was still funny. He could still do his things, and it was great opening for him because he's working on his hour. I think he's gonna tape in Spanish, and he's a great guy, very knowledgeable, and I like that's one of the guys that I also see. It's like, oh, this is kind of like the career that I would love to have as well. Somebody that has taken going back and kind of wrapping things up is about somebody that's done not just stand up, but did other stuff like his podcast, and then now he's acting and all this stuff. So it's like he's a guy that just didn't stuck. I'm just gonna do stand up and that's it. He's just like, oh, he's so opportunist, and now he's succeeding on them.
Did you learn anything from him that you've kind of applied to your own stand up from watching him or from like even speaking with him?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think his what I love about him. I mean, he's a lot of stories. I mean, his whole his which I still not as good as I want to be with those. You know, like of taking a bit or taking an idea and just really hammering the details and going this journey. And that's what I love about that he does. He just goes into those little things and crazy details and stuff like that. So that's one of the main, and his calmness too on stage too, where it's like where you don't have to be, you don't have to be so much or so big, and you can still be funny, and you can still bring, and that's one thing that I like what he does. That I also learned watching Chappelle too. When he's doing his 2 hours in the Comedy Store, the fact that he's just like chilling, and then all of a sudden he becomes one of the characters, and then goes back. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool, because to me, that's how we love to build an hour with an hour show, because it's ebbs and flows. It's kind of like a movie. Every movie has like that. You can have like an action movie for like 2 hours of action. People are like, okay, after 30 minutes, it's like, I got to get the fuck out of here. It's too much, or too much sadness. And same thing with stand-up. I think you have to, if you're going to do an hour, you can't just, if you're going to be the crazy guy, you can't be crazy for an hour. It's just gonna be, it becomes a thing where people go like, I don't know what's going on. Like, so those things that I learned from watching Tom is that you get into this, like, it's about getting the audience into your like stream of consciousness, I guess, into your way of your mind. Once they get in with you, then you can go up and down and left and right, and they'll follow you. But you have to get, it takes a while for you to build that, but that's what I learned about, that I have learned with Tom.
Whew. That's gold, and a great way to wrap this up. Francisco, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Of course.
That was great.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
That was fun? Okay, good. I'm
yeah, I love talking about this stuff.
That's what I'm finding out is I've done over 200 interviews with comedians, but like I was always in the mindset of like, but it has to be in person. Like I would never do them over the phone or like through Skype. But now when we're quarantined, I was like, let's see what happens. So now I'm interviewing like 3 comics a week, and I'm like, comics really enjoy just talking about comedy and the process. So it's we're definitely looking to
because I think it's one of those things that I don't think people realize what an art form and a craft is.
Yes.
Like we know, but the public doesn't know. The public thinks it's like, hey, go up and be funny on the middle of the street. It's like, what? No, it's like you don't tell that to an actor or a musician or an athlete, So it's like for us, it's the same thing. It's like people don't understand the craft and the process, because we make the people that are good, like Tom, Bill Burr, all those guys, they make it seem so easy.
Yeah.
But why? Because they've been doing it for 20, 30 years,
Yeah, and that was enlightening when I interviewed Jesse David Fox, who's the host of Good One. Have you heard Good One before?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and So he's like, his mission with Good One is to like create more competent comedy fans so they can appreciate the craft.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, we're doing that with Hot Breath, but it's almost like creating more competent comedians so that comedy just gets that much better as well. So it was fun to see everyone thinking of like, how can we make comedy better? So that's what we're doing here. So that's exciting, and thanks for being a part of it.
That's great.
So
thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're gonna get we're looking to get Jesus is about to release a comedy special, so we're definitely looking to get him on here.
Yes, he's a great guy.
Where can people follow you and support you and all that jazzercise?
Yeah, well, on Twitter you can follow me at Francisco Ramos. So all my first and last name, and then on Instagram at F Ramos Comedy. You can find me there, and then also please, if you wanna support, you can watch the show that I'm in right now on Netflix called Hentified. It's a great show that just got picked up a second season, so that's cool.
Congrats.
And then I have thank you. I'm very happy for them because it's the people that created the show are such great, down-to-earth people, and the producers as well. So it's like I'm just happy just to be a part of it. So it's an amazing, it's great that they got picked up, to give them a second season. So yeah, but yeah, you can watch that, and just follow me and support. Hopefully when I go to Atlanta and perform, come by and and see me live.
For sure. Yeah, thank you, Francisco Ramos, for doing this. Hot Brett the Verse, go forth. Support this man. This guy is definitely a name you are going to keep hearing more and more about. We're so honored to catch him at this point in his career. So if you want to get involved in more of these Q&As, go to the link in the description. Click join the Facebook group. We're connecting with listeners and comedians from around the world. So go join us there, and we'll be back with another Hot Breath episode soon. Bye.
Thank you.